Guess? Santa Barbara pedestrians, a possible subspecies. Now, you and I, we're all one species. We're human beings, Homo sapiens. We can interbreed. That's the definition in biology of a species. A group of animals that can interbreed. That's a species. A subspecies is, upon observation, you look at that particular creature and it seems that they're not the same as the others. Totally different. See, you can jump to the conclusion, that's not the same fish, that's a different kind of bear than the other one. In this case, pedestrians. Now, we are all pedestrians. That is the primary skill of our species. That's what we do best, walk. Walk around. We can climb, we can run, we can swim to a degree, but what we do mostly is walk. We walk, before the last couple hundred years, that's pretty much all we did. All our mileage as a species traveling all over the earth is walking around. Therefore, it's a pretty important activity. I grew up here in Santa Barbara and I learned to be a pedestrian here. I was trained to be a pedestrian here. 45 years ago is where I started my serious training. Look for cars. Now that's the difference, the modern world. We have cars now. It used to be bears or lions or something else we had to watch out for when we were walking, but now we cross streets and we have to watch out for cars because the average car weighs a ton. That's the average. So 2,000 pounds or more of moving steel. Now, Superman was my favorite TV show, but we as pedestrians cannot stop 2,000 pounds of moving at almost any speed. Very important. Dangerous. It's dangerous to be a pedestrian. Grown up, I grew up with the fear and respect for those moving vehicles. I traveled the world. I noticed that everybody else all over the world also afraid. Car. Then you cross. And I was gone for 30 years from Santa Barbara, and I come back. And as a trained field biologist, the first thing I do is observe my surroundings, observe the animals, observe the plants even. But in this case, I observe the pedestrians in Santa Barbara. 30 years later, I'm shocked. I marvel at what they're doing. Because what they're doing is something that is totally different than the rest of our species does. Our species, as a pedestrian entering a roadway, we look, we fear, we use caution, then we go. But not the Santa Barbara pedestrian. The Santa Barbara pedestrian has no fear. They're not afraid of cars. They're so confident and so bold, they don't even look. That's what I marvel at. That's what I was shocked about. I'm noticing the people cross the street without ever looking in any direction. The only thing they do look at, I noticed, which wasn't here that 30 years previous, is the little man that comes on, flashes on. They follow the little man. When the red hand comes on, they don't move. They're on their phone, they're not paying attention, but they do, out of the corner of their eye. If the red hand is there, they won't move. I was on State Street, just up the road, and at that particular piece of State Street, I can see a half a mile to the left and a half a mile to the right. There were no cars. My training tells me I'm crossing the street. It's safe. I don't care what the hand says. I don't care if the little man's there. I'm crossing the street because it's safe. But on either side of State Street, in that first particular example, there was at least 20 people on one side and 15 people on the other side, and they would not move. I crossed the street, and people were yelling at me, "Hey! You're going to get killed." And I said, "I don't know." By what? What's going to kill me? And then I go down State Street some more, I get to another intersection, and there's a bus coming. Now that's 2,000 pounds for a car, now we got 20,000 plus, more than 10 tons. of heavy steel moving, and guess what? The little man said go. The bus is coming down, well, bus drivers are pretty good. The little man said go, they just went. And unfortunately, I did notice, the other thing that I was shocked about, growing up here, I didn't hear about people getting run over by cars. But then when I got back, people were getting hit by cars pretty often and killed. Even the person I know was killed. And it shocked me, and so I kept observing. And then I observed at night and day, and I started, as a field biologist would do, I took numbers. And I found that virtually no one looks during the day in a crosswalk where there's lights. Almost no one. It's about 90% of the people don't even look. Complete confidence, no fear of that moving steel. That kind of divergence from our species, our primary activities as a species, began to make me think they might be, in fact, a subspecies. Maybe they can interbreed with us. It's possible. I haven't tested that theory yet. But based on observation, not even at night, and even without crosswalks, I noticed, and I did this being a pedestrian, I did it also driving, and at night and at day. And even at night, in places where they cross, and when I'm talking downtown here, people crossing the street without looking, in the night, very confident, bold. Perhaps they are a different species because they are more powerful than I am. Because I know that a car moving 30 miles an hour will be the end of my career as a human being walking the face of the earth. So if I was you, or me still, if you're a Santa Barbara pedestrian, look before you walk.